right. Good morning, St. Paul's, friends of St. Paul's, everyone who's joining us this morning for Adult Formation. Our Sunday forum for today is a part of our series titled Between the Times, Living as God's People in a Fragile World. And we have a presentation this morning from the Resilience Ministry, a presentation about childhood trauma, about prevention, and hope. It's my pleasure to welcome all our panelists, Howard and Joyce Lachlan, Jerry Batchelor, Jackie Straub, and I will hand things over to George Adamick.
Thanks, Javier. Thanks, everybody. It's great to see, well, not to see everybody, but you get to see us, but to know we're together. Why don't we just start with a prayer, and as we enter into this experience together. Gracious God, still us this morning, calm us in your presence, make us aware of your ever-present presence in our lives. Be with us as we open our hearts and our minds to the work of resilience, the Resilience Ministry, and look forward to ways of creating healing, wholeness, wellness, certainly in the lives of our children, but in all of us as well. All of us are adults who still carry, in some ways, the trauma of experiences that we may have had in our lives, and open our hearts and minds to learn of your call to us to create a whole world filled with your love. We ask in Christ's name. Amen. Well, I've been asked just to say a couple of words, and I do want to just be brief, but really commend the work that has been done with the Resilience Ministry. I'll admit to you, this was up until a few years ago, not on my radar and not in my experience until I learned about the work of resilience. And I remember, Howard and Joyce and Jackie and I going to some, to put it bluntly, a movie, which was about this work, which was a really transformational experience. And we're joined by staff from the preschool and our children's ministry, and we really learned a lot about this. And it really is the work of the, you'll hear the word ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and it was an awakening to me of how those ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences, can affect us physically, not only psychologically or mentally, but with physical illness and physical disease. And so to bring about healing in our world, it's not just through being aware of present illnesses, but to look back and find ways that wholeness and healing, resilience can be created as we grow and mature. So I want to commend the work that's been done by the Resilience Ministry. This is really, in many ways, a new emerging ministry, and it's emerged. I don't think we're emerging anymore, but we're here. And I want to pass this on, hand this over to those who'll be presenting this morning. And I'm looking forward to being part of this as well. So thank you for joining us, and thanks for those who call us to gather.
Good morning. On behalf of the Resilience Ministry, thank you for joining us. Here is an overview of our program. We begin with a question: what do we know about childhood adversity and its effect on one's health? To help answer this question, we will watch a video featuring Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, who is a dynamic, informative speaker. She will tell her story of learning more about adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and how, if left untreated, may harm the long-term health of a person. Dr. Burke-Harris is a pediatrician who, along with others, established the Youth and Wellness Center of San Francisco. Currently, she is the Surgeon General of California. To continue to answer our question, after the video, Jerry Batchelor will review the original list of ACEs, along with additional causes of childhood trauma. Howard Lachlan will address what may make a difference for children and provide hope through positive childhood experiences, or PCEs. PCEs have been shown to mitigate the adverse effects of childhood trauma. So now let's watch the video, How Childhood Trauma Affects Health Across a Lifetime.
Every time I hear Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, it takes my breath away. It makes me squirm because I have to remember hard times in my own childhood and the times I had traumatized children in my classroom and didn't recognize them, much less reach out to them. So becoming part of the resilience ministry was a no-brainer for me. Today, we hope that you too will learn about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and be more aware of traumatized children and learn ways you can help make their futures healthier and happier. First, let me remind you about the traumas that affect children so strongly. Children may be abused and neglected. The abuse could be active, physical, sexual, and/or emotional. Actions that involve the child directly. Here are some ways you might see it. Physical abuse. I don't think I'd want to go home to someone who believed that sparing the rod spoiled the child and that I always seemed to deserve to be punished. Some physical abuse can cause serious injury. Sexual abuse. Children seem to know when they are being touched or used inappropriately, and they are often helpless to voice it, much less stop it. This not only affects their sense of well-being, but also close relationships. Emotional abuse. I know what it's like to be told repeatedly that you're no good, worthless. That tape is embedded in me. Children may also be the target of emotions that an adult can't handle. Emotional neglect. Children can be ignored and isolated. Their feelings may not be recognized or given a response. Such discounting only contributes to their feelings of worthlessness. Physical neglect. If no one cares whether I was clean or had clean clothes or my hair was brushed and I wanted to be all those things, I think I would not only feel embarrassed and shamed, but I'd feel worthless. Children often must deal with conditions in their environment, conditions over which they have little or no control. Household substance abuse. When the need for alcohol or drugs is primary, children aren't valued. And even after the need for the drug is met, the results could be even worse if the user becomes violent. Parental divorce or separation. A child's security is destroyed as their family disintegrates. Both parents are loved by the child, and having one walk out of a child's life is a very personal rejection. Household mental illness. If someone in the house acts erratically or withdraws from relationships, safety disappears. Logic and reasonableness are not normal. In fact, a normal life may be a fantasy. Mother treated violently. Too often adults who carry their own ACEs scars use violence as a way to deal with emotion. Watching a mother be abused leaves scars of its own. Incarcerated household family member. It may be a father, but it can also be a mother. I will always remember when I was waiting outside the women's high security prison and a little girl who had just finished a special visit with her mother was led out. She was sobbing. I want my mommy. I want my mommy. She was heartbroken. There are about 2.5 million people in prison today. Most of incarcerated women are mothers. Those are the original 10 ACEs. Now we are aware that there are more. I would guess that these additional ACEs are not surprising to you, and that you can see how they could all lead back to the original ACEs. Poverty. Lack of money can lead to food and housing instability. Children attend schools that are not equipped to deal with needs such as emotional, mental, medical, and dental care. Neighborhood violence. Some children live with death as a daily event. Security is an illusion. The child may not expect to live or may worry about losing family and friends. Life itself seems to have little value. Discrimination in all its forms. Whenever children are given the message that they are less than others, their self-esteem and hopes take a hit. They may expect little of themselves and their future. Natural disasters. This COVID-19 pandemic, hurricanes, floods, or loss of electricity make living conditions even more difficult. Food and housing insecurity. This happens not only because of poverty, but often because of natural disasters. Sometimes the action of governments or business force people to move or lose income. For example, housing developments may be destroyed because they've become unsanitary. Bullying. This is certainly a negative in any child's life. We've all heard of children attempting suicide because they have been bullied. And bullying can become a negative way to express emotions. Separation from parents. There can be so many causes of separation besides divorce. Children may be placed in foster care because of parental neglect or abuse, addiction, or incarceration. We've learned that the child will miss their parents, whether they were good parents or not. Racism. St. Paul's is blessed with the work of Alita McClenny and Tad and Deb Richard to make us aware of racism in ourselves, our community, our nation, and our culture. One of the things we have learned is that racism can significantly contribute to the impact of ACEs. Go to the St. Paul's website and search for racism to find more resources. And it would be very unusual if we, as adults, didn't look back and see instances of ACEs in our own histories. Perhaps you will understand yourself better because of what you have learned so far. And perhaps you will understand why the ACEs you experienced were eased. In fact, our mission today is to educate you and give you tools to help children who experience such trauma. And that is what Howard Laughlin will share with you.
Thank you, Jerry. Good morning. When I first heard about the long and short-term impact of ACEs and was reminded of all the other things that can traumatize children and family that Jerry just outlined for us, a couple of thoughts kept recurring to me. One was, this is a huge problem. And two, what can I as an individual do about this problem? And despite my concern, I felt helpless. Well, we've talked a lot about childhood trauma so far this morning. The rest of our program is going to focus on thoughts about how we can do something about this situation. What hope can we provide to either diminish the impact of ACEs or ideally prevent them? A long time ago, a wise person told me that for every complicated question, there's a simple answer, and it's usually wrong. Well, the problem of childhood trauma is a very complicated question, and there is no simple answer. People have approached this problem in multiple ways. I'm going to mention two today, but there are undoubtedly more. The first is to attack the big issues, if you would, the underlying societal and systematic things that cause such problems. And here we're talking about abuse and neglect and mental health issues and poverty, racism, and the list goes on and on. The second way to approach it is to try to identify and support children or families where there's extensive adversity. So these are the ways we're going to focus on. St. Paul's is blessed to have a number of very active ministries, studies, and educational opportunities that are working to address these big issues, whether it be refugees or people with food insecurity or the homeless or farm workers. There are a lot of very active ministries here at St. Paul's. Our 1 week effort is another example of how we've come together as a community to attempt to work on some of these big issues. Hats off to everybody who is participating in these efforts, and they really need to be successful to ultimately prevent a lot of this childhood adversity. Our resilience ministry has taken another focus, if you would, a much smaller focus, where we try to see how we can identify and respond appropriately to children and families where there is lots of adversity, lots of trauma, and toxic shock, if you would, toxic stress. One of the things that's been fascinating to both clinicians and researchers is that there are a lot of children who are traumatized by various serious things that are going on in their lives or have gone on in their lives. And yet these children's lives take very different trajectories. Some end up leading perfectly normal and productive lives, and others seem to go into a downward spiral where a series of bad decisions lead to bad outcomes that are lifelong. So what makes the difference in why some children survive adversity and others don't? Well, the experts have studied this issue and come up with two broad categories of reasons. One is called the intrinsic factors. Well, these are studies that talk about what we all know, which is no two children are alike. There are differences in their personalities, coping skills, intelligence, a variety of skills, and it's not hard to understand how certain sets of these attributes unique to that child help him or her survive a really tough environment where others would not do as well. The second set of factors are the extrinsic factors, and these are studies about the environments that the children live in, the people they encounter, the circumstances they go through that really seem to make a difference and have been labeled positive childhood experiences or PCEs. let me say just a quick word about the research that's gone into identifying these positive childhood experiences. It's nowhere near as large a study or as extensive as the Kaiser Permanente study that Dr. Burke-Harris told us about. But there are a number of these studies, and when you put them all together, it's convincing that these positive experiences do make a difference for children. Well, let's take a quick look at some of this research about positive childhood experiences. These are retrospective studies, which, like the Kaiser study, determine what adults have been subject to a number of ACEs, and then go back and ask that person, as a child, did you have a parent who talked to you about things that really mattered, not the latest ball score? Did you have a family that stood by you in difficult times? Was there an adult, not a parent or family member, who provided you with support or advice? And did you have at least one good friend as you were growing up? These are just a few examples of the questions. The research then looked at outcomes, and there were a whole variety of outcomes. Several of them were looking at the cardiovascular health of these people in midlife. And in fact, the ones that had had positive childhood experiences were better than those who hadn't. They looked at adult mental health and what they called relational health. And these were, again, better in the positive group. Even looking back on their school performance and engagement, it was better if you'd had these positive experiences. Well, what's the bottom line of all this? Positive childhood experiences are relationships. They're not stuff. They're not the latest video games or the fancy home or the car when you get your driver's license. These are the relationships that you have. They can be with parents or family. This is obviously ideal, but they don't have to be with your family. Other adults, such as teachers or neighbors or coaches or youth leaders at church, can all have these positive relationships. Several studies have also pointed out that peers for youth make an important difference. If a young person has a friend who they think really cares for them, that helps them go through tough times. Bottom line is, each one of us can have a hand in providing these positive relationships. Well, what happens if a child does have significant positive relationships? They feel safe. And I'm coming to believe that this safety is an increasingly important issue, is a very important issue. Think back to Dr. Burke-Harris and her story about what a child goes through if the bear comes home every evening. The child also experiences unconditional love. This is love that isn't dependent on good grades or even good behavior. The child feels accepted and supported for who he or she is. Well, by this time, I suspect you may have been thinking about the relationships that you've had or that you currently have with young people in your lives, and feeling that these are important, supportive relationships, and that's wonderful. You may also have been thinking, well, maybe there are children or young people in my life that are struggling at the moment, and maybe I need to find ways to reach out to them and be supportive to them to hopefully provide some of these positive experiences. What's the take-home message here? Who knows what the take-home message for you is, but we hope that people will be convinced, one, that these positive childhood experiences make a difference, and two, that each one of us has a way that we can help provide these experiences for young people. St. Paul's Resilience Ministry has recently become involved with a program that we think will be helpful in providing you with both reinforcement about how important this is and practical ways that you can reach out to others in your life. Joyce will tell us about these.
Thank you, Howard. Connections Matter is a program of Prevent Child Abuse North Carolina. We at St. Paul's are a pilot congregation for Connections Matter. They are very interested in what our resilience ministry is doing, and they have put us in touch with many valuable resources. Several St. Paul's members have been trained in providing workshops on the importance of developing healthy brains through caring relationships. Notice that word relationships again. At this time, we're planning a 1 to 2 hour Zoom-based workshop in the early winter months. And again in the spring or summer, a live workshop when we can safely gather again. Upcoming right now is one of several videos in that workshop to whet your appetite. Jackie and I are available to talk with you about if you'd like to attend one of these workshops, and you'll hear more about it soon. This is one of the videos from the workshop. Here are just a few of the ways, simple ways that you could be a connection. Put your phone away while talking with children. Talk with youth to ask their opinions about an issue in your community. Make up an imaginary game with a child that involves no technology. Invite an upset child or teen to share their story and feelings. Sing something fun with the child. Make a date with the child and caregiver to play at the park. Read a story at bedtime. I bet you're already starting to think of some things that you could do also to be a connection. You are now seeing a list of our Resilience Ministry members. If you would like to join us in this important work, please talk to any of us, or you can email us at the resilience@stpaulscary.org. That address is on the next slide. We would welcome you on this committee. We'd welcome your help.
Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning and thinking a little bit about adverse childhood experiences and what we can do about that. I would urge you, if you're interested, go to St. Paul's website. It has all kinds of resources. Our Resilience Ministry page is continually updated. The other important ministries and One Wake have sites that are updated as well. So use that resource, or if you have a question, specific question that we haven't covered today, or you have interest in joining our ministry or learning more about it, please email us at resilience@stpaulscary.org. I would like to mention one other thing that's going on in the Resilience Ministry. As we mentioned several times, we've pointed out the value of youth having relationships with each other and the importance of youth understanding all of this adversity information. One of our committee, well, two of our committee members, Megan Cooper and Zach Rugen, are working on a curriculum to offer to the youth of St. Paul's to help understand this and, again, help them think about what they may want to do as they encounter friends or others who are struggling. So hats off to Megan and Zach on that effort.
All right, let's see here. One of the questions was resources for teens, which I think was something that you just mentioned, Howard, that you're working on. That are there any other resources for teens that you'd like to point people's attention to?
No, I think that's a great question, and it's one that actually has been with our ministry for a long time. And Megan and Zach have stepped forward to try to create this curriculum that they're waiting to use till we can actually, the youth can actually come back together in person. I think it'll be much more viable. This is an effort that's really being looked at around the state and probably broader than that, because there are no existing, to our knowledge, curricula or ways that people have experience talking to youth. So this will be kind of groundbreaking work, and we're looking forward to their actually being able to implement it at St. Paul's.
Good. All right, I believe that is it. The only other comment we received was no questions, just wanted to say excellent presentation. And I think that's a great note to end on. So thank you, Howard and Joyce and Jerry and Jackie, and thank you, George, for being here with us. Our Adult Forum series continues next week at the same time, same channel. So I invite you to join me next week and to keep joining us as we gather together for our Sunday forums. Thanks again for taking the time to be with us, and take courage, love deeply, and keep the faith, people. Let's keep going. All right, take care.